dancing house, and we've never really identified exactly what these uses are going to be. Hopefully the master plan will take that on. So in terms of the issue of the uses and the issue that the dames have raised in terms of the phases of this project, I think that those should, I agree with the staff suggestion that we wait for those until they are incorporated into the master plan. I think that's the appropriate place for them. In terms of the general indication of recognition that this building is a historic building and that it's extremely important to the town of Atherton, I think that we should direct the mayor to write a letter indicating that, acknowledging the dames. The Historical Association has done that, and I think that it's appropriate for us as a town to do it. We're going to enjoy the benefits of this, and I think that we should provide our support for it.
Councilwoman Lewis.
So, I'm a dame. I'm an Atherton dame. I'm an active Atherton dame. I hosted the first luncheon of the kickoff, and in September at my home, my expense, I support the dames and everything that they are doing. I was co-chair of the Atherton Easter egg hunt this last April 18th, when was it, 15th? 19th, all blurred together. You know, we raised over $8,000 for the foundation for the Danes fundraiser. Over 800 people came. It was really successful. I think that the carriage house is one of our prime pieces of history in our town. The questions I have are, why now? Why is the push now, at this time, being made to go forward with this particular plan? This plan has been put together by the Danes, a small group of the Danes organization, actually. And the push is to really get it going. The park master plan has not been finished. The uses of all of the facilities in the park have yet to be fully identified. And like the bike ped master plan, the drainage master plan, and the civic center master plan, all of those master plans have had many, many, many public hearings, public outreach meetings, public input. This design, this project has not had that. It's been put together by a small group of the Danes organization, and they're pushing it through. So I don't know that this design, this approach is really what maybe a majority of the residents want. And we haven't put it out there for them. Maybe the majority of the residents will want to just have the carriage house remain as a historic building with making sure that it doesn't fall down around us, which it seems that the answers to Mayor Weiss' questions last month about the facility and whether or not the structural this and that have been answered with the Public Works Director, that it's not falling down, it's not in danger of collapsing, and it's just not, there's no urgency that I can see to push this through, and I don't think it has been completely vetted. I think that it would be premature and actually irresponsible for council to take any action at all in regards to this project until, as staff is recommending, at least the master plan is finished so that we can see what type of venues there are in the park and what type of uses there may be. There's a number of ideas that I'm sure many of our residents would have in input on the project. So that's kind of my feeling about it. I just don't want to feel pressured, and I'm feeling pressured to endorse this. Pardon me? You did say something, didn't you? Yes.
You should feel this way.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I just wanted to hear what you said.
Sorry.
Thank you. So I just feel that it hasn't had enough exposure and enough public input. And I think that our process that we did with the Civic Center Master Plan, I know other council members have said this should be a model for everything we do in a civic manner going forward. And I think that this falls within that because it is such an important part of our history. It is such an important icon, and we need to be very careful about it.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the Dames and staff for getting together, and I think a clear assessment is the building isn't falling over and that termites aren't taking it over, and structurally it'll still be there tomorrow in light of no earthquake. So I do want to thank you for getting together with staff and getting that in order, because I was concerned after hearing that there was some serious issues with it. I at least know that the building is standing, and in fact that we do have some time to work on this issue. I have some concerns myself related to public input. While I do appreciate and I do thank all of the Dames for picking projects in the park, I also believe, and I think that we as a town should have learned a lesson a little bit from our last park issue, and hopefully we could take the same issue with the Civic Center and doing some outreach and finding and narrowing down what residents want the carriage house to be. Do the residents want a carriage house that is restored in its present state as a building of historic significance? Or do they want us to have the single level facility? Do they want us to have another venue? I think those are three options for the carriage house, but I'm relying on a group, and I thank the group for being so enthusiastic and picking up projects in the park. But I also think that we have a responsibility to make sure that with the park master plan, and if we get public input that determines a better direction, what the public's willing to accept us in having, it'll also help us in our budgeting phase on what we're going to do with the building and the surrounding areas, which is another component of this. Because by creating a separate venue, if that is the direction that the public would want, we also have other things to consider, and I think that that's something that we as council members have discussed in creating a better venue area for the carriage house. So I still am supportive of staff's recommendation, but I would also like to see some outreach, and I'm going to ask the town manager for some comments related to outreach, and how can we facilitate some outreach that hopefully we can get some feedback quickly, so that we can also utilize that as far as our budgeting process to not prevent us from doing something and slowing down the Dames any more than necessary.
Well, I suspect you could, direct staff to do something for them via the town, or you could ask the Dames to do that. You could express
Park and Rec.
or Park and Rec, but there's probably a Park and Rec commissioner or two in the audience. I'm not sure what swelling of support or input they could gather unless they had the support of the council to do a more formalized survey town-wide, and not just a regular Park and Rec meeting to ask for input. But you could also task the Dames to do that. You could send a letter saying, hey, we think it's a great project, however, we would like additional public input, that sort of thing. You could do either.
Please, Vice Mayor Golia.
So, part of our process, right, as a public council and commission here representing the town, is that we need to debate these issues in public. We don't debate these issues in private. That's what the purpose of the Brown Act is. So we are here talking amongst ourselves really for the first time about what we think about this, and I'm gonna be very direct about it. I think there is an issue regarding timing that Councilmember Lewis has brought up that's a valid issue, but the fact is, it's happening. The Dames are making this happen, they're raising the money, they're moving forward. So, you know, this horse has left, and either we're gonna recognize it as a historical building that's important to the town and that's appropriate to renovate the building, or we're gonna delay that. But ultimately, we're going to do that because this is a critical building to the town. So that's why I support going ahead and giving that acknowledgement now. I agree with the mayor that we made some mistakes around the Little League facility because we didn't reach out as broadly as we should have reached out. Now, I think that what we're going to have built there is going to be very good for the town, and I think that we're going to find that it really enhances the park. It'll be one of the issues that enhance the park. But I think we made some mistakes about not doing the proper kind of outreach. So, I mean, that comment, I think, is a valid comment, and we should do everything we can to help give the Dames leadership to make that happen, so that they, I personally think it's a wonderful plan. I've seen the work that this architect has done, I'm impressed with it, but that should be open to public scrutiny. And there's a difference between, let me just finish, there's a difference between the Carriage House and the Civic Center in that there is public money being used in the Civic Center. There will be public money used for the results of the drainage master plan and the results of the pedestrian and bike master plan. And at this point, there's no public money committed for the Carriage House. So, I mean, from the manager's perspective, I don't want to run into a problem around what we can or can't do, because, but I would like to support some kind of outreach.
Can I just respond to a couple of things that you said? I think that the public money, actually, private money is being raised to build the Civic Center, if you
But there's
remember.
public money
Okay.
that's involved.
And the Carriage House, even if the Dames raise all their money to do this plan, it's not their Carriage House.
Right.
Okay, it still has to come to council for approval to do anything to the Carriage House. And I'm saying that it is a significant project that needs to have public outreach on and public input on. And they are asking for public money to be used for the renovation also. So I think you misunderstood Mayor Reese's comment, at least maybe I misunderstood it. Maybe Mayor Reese could tell us what he meant by the mistakes that were made in the park, because I took it to be the mistake having to do with putting the library in the park. That was a mistake, not the Little League. I don't think any mistakes were made regarding the Little League in the park.
That's correct. So, Bill?
Yeah, so first off, yeah, I agree with the Vice Mayor wholeheartedly that this is a historic preservation, and so I think it would be wrong to drastically change the Carriage House. I've got no issue with perhaps the town saying to the Dames, we'd like you to hold an open house and collect some input. I think that would be a great idea. They're having a venue, as I understand, to raise some money for it. However, when you ask somebody to go do that and they're providing the service of raising money, they're saying, okay, I'll go do those things, but give me your support, that you support that we're going to do something. We're going to do something with our building, which is our building. And that they want our support so that they can raise some money. So raising the money, finalizing the design, those are two disjoint things. And yes, there is a design that's used to show it's a conceptual, as Mike said, it's 50%, it's in multiple phases. There may be changes based on, and there would want to be changes if we change the park master plan. Yeah, when it's done and we know how big each of the facilities are going to be, or what we want to do with the pavilion, etc., there may be targeting of let's have this type of event here or that type of event there. But I think that doesn't stand in the way with providing some degree of support. With the support, you could say, we'd like you to, have an open house and collect some input and come back next month and tell us how that input is, etc. But they want to get going. They're trying to get some grants. I mean, yes, indeed. Susan came here last month and was very bold in asking for $1 million outright, saying it's 2 projects and I'm only going to do phase 1 and I'm going to do 1 phase and it's going to be 1 and 2 sections. But at the end of the day, how much money they raise is really up to their initiative, and if they can get some grants, that maybe the town wouldn't have to put a penny into it. So I think it's time will tell, but I think we need to give them as much time to start raising the money and to start going ahead and writing these grants. As a historic building, it is eligible for certain fundings, and I think that having everybody in the region supporting it, or key people in the region supporting it, and having this council being split on how to support it, it doesn't send the right message, especially when it's our building. So I think, if I can finish, and I'll one more. A letter of support could have lots of things in it, caveats, etc. And I would trust the city manager to come up with something that we could all live with, if in fact we would all agree that perhaps he could take a shot at it. But that's my comment.
Thanks, Councilman Whitmer. So obviously there are.
I had 24 more seconds. I just wanted to add 2 things. The park and rec
I'm sorry,
commission-
Susan, if I give it to you, then I gotta give it to everybody.
Some people indicate the park and rec hasn't approved this. Park and rec and Holbrook Palmer Park Foundation have endorsed us, but I let that off with my list of endorsements. That's all I was gonna say.
Perfect. And for anybody else that wants 23 seconds, I'll give you 23 seconds of additional comments. Thanks, Susan. Don't want to treat anybody differently. Okay. I mean, it is very clear that we have a divide here. But I understand and I hear, and I'm very thankful as a resident that the Dames are willing to jump in a project. But I think that we also have to have a different perspective as well. And since we've been talking about racehorses, there are multiple horses in the park that have left the gate. And one of which is the foundation and the Dames have an event garden. And there's money that is short on that project at this time. We're embarking on a second facility. So we've got a whole lot of horses in this game, and the town has to stop the horses from running, and let's walk, and let's get back to these projects and say, slow down a little bit, let's get some public input. And I understand that my regional supporters want to give support to our little Holbrook Palmer Park and our carriage house, and I'm thankful that they're doing that. But we ultimately are responsible for the park, and if we embark on another project and the residents of Atherton decide that they do not like what we're doing, then we're going to have the same problem we had in the previous years, and that to me is not acceptable. So I think that in the interest of working together to find out what the residents want, which is our goal ultimately, even my council members to the right would have to agree with this, to find out what residents want, to find out what the scope of the project would be based on what the residents want, then we can move forward. We'll also have the master plan being finalized, and therefore we would be acting as a responsible council, and the horses will just have to slow down a little bit, and not to be disrespectful to anybody, but I think it is a little more responsible, and then we can all work together on finalizing this project to what the residents of Atherton want. We understand now that the building's not falling over. So I think that by giving George the ability to work with the Dames, to come up with a reasonable method, to come up with a survey to find out how we can come up with use. If the town has to help, or the Dames are willing to contribute, split, whatever it has to be, so that we can come up with some results from the residents of Atherton with reasonable language. Bill and myself worked on some previous, and we've had previous companies that we've used. Let's find a pulse. Then we can identify an accurate project. Then we can move it into our master plan. Then we can go ahead and decide what the uses in the park will be. It's responsible. So I don't think that at this point it's prudent to go forward with the vote because it won't be favorable to the Dames or the project itself. We want this project, I think we can all agree, to succeed. We just don't know what the project is. And we have to be responsible in finding out what that is. And that's what the Atherton residents are going to be able to tell us. A little bit of time is not going to hurt anybody. So, please.
Let's agree that we'll ask the city manager to meet with the Dames and come up with a strategy for how to do some outreach in order to
Come up with some results.
get a sense of the pulse of what people want to do.
Please. I think that would be the,
Would that be the consensus of the council for me to do that?
Bill,
And that's only two so far.
Elizabeth? Yes? Well, you're both going to say yes, so let's hear it. Yes.
Well, I just, I guess I want to understand what kind of outreach we're talking about, because I kept saying outreach, many times about another project, and there wasn't enough.
My taking direction would be to work with the Danes, work with staff to come up with an idea to conduct some public outreach, bring that back to the council at a future meeting, say, hey, this is our plan, what do you think? It might cost this, it might cost that, the Danes is gonna share in the cost, how much does the town need to contribute? Bring that back, council says yay or nay, and we move forward.
But I think that we really need to have the park master plan completed first. I really do, before this outreach, because we don't know, we haven't decided as a council what kind of venue this carriage house is going to be, whether or not it is going to be an enhanced venue opportunity with potentially more parking, or if it's going to be, just a historical icon, maybe with tours with school children coming through with a docent to talk about the history of Atherton, and so it would have a low impact on the park use. I mean, the plan as it is talks about an exterior elevator and an upstairs, completed venue with an office. I don't think I want to see it turned into an office. Personally, the residents may be happy with that.
Mr. Mayor, perhaps I could
Please.
address that concern. I mean, the concern of the Councilmember Lewis is that the master plan be coincidental to
Sure.
to the development of the carriage house. But if we're going to actually conduct a resident outreach on what they want to see in the carriage house, I think that would serve to inform the master plan if it is not yet complete.
But
Maybe
wouldn't the
it's-
master plan also be part of an outreach, vehicle for, I know they did a survey, right? It was a would-be survey. You can agree to that.
Well, I think that the carriage house, this project has been pitched at a number of publicly noticed meetings, open meetings, so there has been some outreach. I think that I don't object to, as was brought up, perhaps the Dames could sponsor a mailer or some sort of survey or something like that, or at a meeting, and the parks, that we could do at the 3 meetings. The Dames have their session, the Holbrook Palmer Park Foundation could do something and have that on their agenda. The Parks and Rec could again have one last shot at that, and we could keep notes of that. But again, my point on the letter of support, an endorsement, a letter of support or a letter of endorsement might be 2 different things. So an endorsement to me says that everything that they presented that's how it's going to be, and that's where it's going to be, and we endorse everything. The project is done and dusted. A letter of support says, thank you very much for raising money, go out and get some money, and we would be most appreciative of you do that, and when you get it, and as you progress we progress our plans, you progress your plans, etc., we do all these other things, we're gonna come to a final project that we all agree on, and this council is gonna buy off on. But I do believe that, I think that the dame's request was some sort of recognition that we endorse them, or not endorse, that's a bad word, we support them going out and raising money for the benefit of improving the park and improving this building in some manner. And I think that, I endorse having the city manager work with the dames to come up with something, as well as a project step plan. But I think it would be prudent on our part to allow them to do whatever fundraising they want, so that it's not our money, it's somebody else's money. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Vice Mayor DeGoya, do you have anything else to
I
add?
think that the outreach could start with an open house in the carriage house, that the town could talk to them about how to best organize it. We could publicize it in the Athertonian as well as on the website and other places. And then if we don't get enough input from that, maybe we do a poll of some form or survey. I think the idea of outreach is a good one, and that for every one of these projects, whether they're funded with private money or not, when they involve a public facility like the park, we should do outreach. So I agree with that.
Thank you. To the city manager, I think that we've got to be the facilitator of some outreach. And I think that the Dame's participation in sitting down with you and getting a flyer, informational, if we have to do a survey, we've done it before, let's do it again. Let's find out what the residents want. It'll prepare us better for making decisions related to the master plan. It's simple, and I think that that's the right direction. As soon as we get that information, we can bring it into the component of the master plan, get them to have a say related to use, if in fact they're supportive of the complete project. It makes sense to consider the use option in the master plan. We should have a use option of all the buildings in the park. But now we really have to, I don't want to act in a manner that is to try to delay anything, but I want to act in a manner that's trying to be responsible. So I think that that is the healthy direction. I think everybody's comments are reasonable, but I think that that's the responsible way for the town to go.
Consensus?
Please. Perfect. Closing item, thank you, James, and I, again, thank you for all your efforts and continue to work with us on for beautification. Moving on to item number 18. Options for Parker Avenue right-of-way. Lisa Costa-Sanders, you're busy tonight. Oh, it's so nice to see you too. So it's loaded.
Good evening. The City Council at its April 16th meeting discussed several options for Parker Avenue right-of-way. And there's 3 options that were discussed. One is abandon a portion of Parker Avenue. The second was to allow minor encroachments at the public right-of-way with the use of encroachment permit. And the third option was to take no action, but request the code enforcement officer enforce the existing regulations. With regards to the first option of abandoning a portion of Parker Avenue, the public right-of-way is 70 feet wide with an approximately 20-foot wide paved area. The City Council discussed abandoning approximately 15 feet of the right-of-way on each side of the street to the private property owners, and that would result in an approximate 900 square feet of increased land area to each property. As requested by the City Council, staff contacted the San Mateo County Assessor's Office to obtain a preliminary evaluation of the land transfer. The principal appraiser of the Assessor's Office stated that they are not able to provide an advisory opinion on the value of the property. The appraiser, though, was able to confirm that the land transfer would trigger a reassessment of the property, but noted that the reassessment would only be on that net new portion of land, and they wouldn't reassess the entire property. So the abandonment of the right-of-way would result in an increase in tax assessment to the Parker Avenue property owners, We just can't let you know at this point how much that would be. So as I indicated, 3 options. You asked us to do additional research. We've done that, so now it's back to you for discussion and direction.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Any questions from council members?
I understand, did staff receive any petitions, signed petitions that we were not given or anything?
I believe the city manager has had conversations with the Parker Avenue property owners. I have not received anything, so maybe we can provide that information.
Thank you, and I'm sure that maybe in our public comment period, some people might have those, and you could tell us. Oh, city manager's back. Sorry, George, we were talking about you.
Oh, great.
By chance, did you happen to get any petitions related to Parker?
I did not, did the city clerk?
Okay, so we have no petitions at this point, but if there are petitions in the audience, we'd be glad to hear them when you come up for public comments. Vice Mayor DeBolia.
Question, Lisa. You said that you considered 3 options: abandonment, limited encroachment agreements, and doing nothing. Did you consider the option of offering abandonment rather than requiring it, so that it would be a property owner's decision as to whether they elected to abandon?
We did.
Hold on. Through the city.
Interestingly enough, the state of California regulates abandonment of road right-of-way, and it's an all-or-nothing kind of thing. Now, I do believe we could select how many properties in, but it's not up to the option of the property owner. It's the requirement that the city make a finding that the property is no longer needed. And when we make that finding, we abandon it and return it back to the, we're not giving them their property, by the way. They already own the property. We're just removing the right-of-way across it, which frees it up for them to use as the rest of their property. So the Streets and Highways Code talks about you have to, when you abandon it back to the underlying fee owner, and it's essentially everybody that is within the finding of being no longer needed. And in doing that, you couldn't gap tooth it. It just doesn't make any sense, and it would defeat the purpose of the Streets and Highways Code that says this is either reserved for utilities and roads, or it goes back to the owners. I mean, I don't think you can gap tooth it like that, because that would make for ineffective future use. You'd have to then go back and condemn it from the property owners that you've just given it back to if you wanted to use it for road right-of-way. So it's kind of an all or nothing kind of thing.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions from staff?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, we're going to go ahead and go out to public comments on this, and I understand that we have a few speaker cards in, so we'll have the town clerk call one at a time.
First one's Elsa Arata. My name is Elsa Arata. I live at 71 Parker Avenue. I'm the newest member to the block. I bought my house in October of last year. At that time, I was aware of the situation, was happy with it, thought it would be fine, didn't realize that there was this big to-do about it. I don't know as much as everyone else, so I'd like to cede my time to Linda Roseman. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsa.
Ann McNerney.
Hi, I have it from third party. I haven't done the legal research myself, but the city of San Carlos has done the gap tooth adjustment with the same issue, and allowed people who wanted it abandoned to have it abandoned to them, and the other people who didn't want to change anything, it could remain just the same. And I think we need to take another legal look, because I'm sure San Carlos is not the only community, but perhaps one could consult with the attorneys in San Carlos and see how they managed to do this middle road, which I think would really create peace in the neighborhood. I mean, we have a situation where, you know, we're all in the minority at some point, and what we want to do is maximize people's freedom and enjoyment of their property. And we're only talking about 21 houses, and abandoning will sort of standardize into 30 feet, which is what it is in a lot of Atherton. But those people who don't want to have to pay the taxes shouldn't be forced to pay the taxes. Nobody likes to pay taxes. So I would sort of like to see the proposal written to include this gap tooth thing after some more legal research is done on it. I'd be happy even to try and do a little of it if it can be accommodated by other people. Because I just think that you open the door, if you make it all or nothing, to a whole lot of people sort of pointing out what somebody else is doing wrong, a whole lot of pettiness, and we don't really need that. You know, we've done so well with coming up with a city plan, you know, for the park, and I just think you have an opportunity by maximizing freedom and being flexible to please all the parties. And I would ask you to, you know, put a fourth option in there, which is let each individual property be happy with their choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Andrew Carlson?
Hello, Commander Crossman at 53 Parker. I have one of the properties that were cited as a little encroaching rock wall matter. I put it in about 16 years ago when I noticed all this time. I received the notice, the right to do, okay, I took it out. It actually took less time to deal with than Wisconsin has spent on this topic already. You have my sympathy on this because our little street keeps coming back, and I think it's a horrible waste of time. I think there are a few properties that have encroachments. There's an encroachment permit process for that. It's an established process. It makes tremendously good sense to follow the processes you have. I think also, if you want to follow the path of abandonment, there are two issues. How much land is the city going to abandon every time the issue comes up? The second issue, since this is a